Howdy, and welcome to Wise About Texas, the Texas History Podcast. This is your host, Ken Wise. Thanks for tuning in today for this somewhat unusual episode of Wise About Texas. I want to talk to y'all about something I'm going to work on in this podcast that may become a new podcast, and I want your feedback on it. The one thing that I've done my whole life since I was a little kid is play golf. It's something that's always been with me. I've always been around it. Sometimes play at a pretty high level. Often, like all golfers, just suffer along. But one thing that I've realized in the last few months is that Texas golf history, and there is a ton of it, is really not reported in a very coherent fashion and really not studied in a very organized way. Now, sports history in general is hard to do because you don't know, there's a lot to focus on. You can focus on the facts and figures of the sport, which of course is important. You can focus on the characters of the sport, which is also important. But sometimes you need to tie it all together, and I just feel like that's been missing in Texas golf history. And the reason I think it's important is Texas golf history is over 100 years old now, as is the history of golf in the United States. And as I've studied golf history from Europe, primarily the UK, of course they have a lot more of it, but it's also written about in a little more literary, a little more scholarly fashion often. And I think American golf history needs a little bit of that. And of course I want to focus on Texas, so I'm thinking about working some golf history into Wise About Texas, and perhaps, depending on what y'all think and how the listenership likes it, I might spin it off into its own golf history podcast. But it certainly could go either direction, I think, well. So one of the reasons I've been thinking about this is golf really is a unique game. It's a game that reveals character. There's a great quote, I can't remember off the top of my head who said it, that golf doesn't build character, it reveals it. And it's unique in among sports in that so many people are able to play it, and it affects us all the same. I like to characterize it as shared suffering. All golfers sort of suffer the same fate. We all hit bad shots, the pros a little less than the amateurs, but everybody suffers in the same way. It's a mentally taxing sport. But it's a sport that bonds its participants together, really, no matter how good you are at it. I mean, for those of us that ever played organized football, I don't know if I have any NFL players listening to this podcast, but if you played football in high school, you cannot and will never be able to do what NFL players do. You might own a sports car and you might drive it fast, but you will never be able to drive it as fast as, say, a NASCAR racer will do. You may have hit a baseball pretty well in middle school or little league, but you will never be able to hit a major league fastball. Golf's a little bit different. You can play on the same field with the same equipment as the best players in the world. And so it's just a unique sport in that respect. And it lends itself to the Texan character too. Texans are adaptable, and you got to be adaptable in golf. Texans have always been tied to the land, and if you think about it, the land is really what shaped golf as we know it. There's some dispute about the origins of golf. If you want to go back far enough, you can say there was a Dutch game that was similar to it. There was a Chinese game that was similar to it, but really golf as we know it was invented in Scotland, and the game took shape because of the land on which it was played, the links land, which is, we don't have a lot of that. We have some similar land here in the United States, but not a lot. But the links land in Scotland, if you've ever seen it, is kind of a raised beach. It's got firm turf. It's very sandy. And that land shaped the way the game evolved. Another idea that lends itself to Texas is the idea that golf is a very individual sport. You're playing against the course. There's really nothing. You're not playing defense against your opponent at any time. You're in control of your own destiny. And boy, doesn't that just scream Texans. Another characteristic of the game of golf is you're playing against the elements. The weather changes, sometimes during your round, and Texans always battle the elements, and they love a challenge. They love an individual challenge. It's a social sport. It's a sport that lends itself to fellowship, which Texans, of course, love to get together and have a good party. It's also a sport that lends itself to betting on your own abilities, let's say, which throughout Texas history, we've seen that. One of the most significant sports in pre-Republic Texas was horse racing. So Texans love anything they can bet on. And the other thing I think that's interesting about golf is you don't have to be a certain type of person to be good at it. If you've ever played any tournament golf, there are people from all walks of life competing on the same course in the same tournament at the same sport. And that really is also a very Texan quality. It really doesn't matter where you're from. You can come to Texas and you can be successful. That's been true throughout our history. It's true in the game of golf. So I think that's why it's so popular with Texans and why Texas golf history has really played an outsized role in the history of golf in the United States and even the world. Just for example, this podcast is being recorded at the time of the 2026 PGA Championship, and the Masters was just completed a few weeks ago, and there are more Texan winners of the Masters than any other state. There's 14. Now we got to talk about Scotty Scheffler, who because he was born in New Jersey, but he moved to Texas when he was single digits in age, and grew up in Texas and learned golf and learned to play golf in Texas. And went to the University of Texas. I think we ought to claim Scotty Scheffler as a Texan, and so that'll bump up the number of Masters winners from Texas to 16. But in any event, Texas has played a very significant role in the history of the game. I can make a very good argument, and probably will at some point on this podcast, that Ben Hogan may be the greatest player in the history of golf. He, of course, was from Fort Worth, born the same year as Byron Nelson, who holds the record for consecutive PGA Tour victories at 11. There's just so many great characters in the game of golf that came from Texas. We've got the University of Houston program that holds the record for number of national championships in golf with 16. There's just a lot to talk about in Texas golf history, and so I think I'm going to start doing a little bit of that. You're going to hear episodes on the earliest golf in Texas, which was in the very late 1800s. The first chartered country club was Galveston Country Club, but their course wasn't quite ready, so it wasn't the first 18-hole course played. The first municipal 18-hole course was Brackenridge Park in San Antonio. But golf sort of started in the cities around Texas about the same time, late 1800s, early 1900s. I want to talk about that. We want to talk about the characters of the game, and we'll just see how it goes. But I need your help. I'd like to hear from you, everybody listening to this podcast. Tell me your interest level in Texas golf history and what you would like to hear about. And I'll do a few episodes. Now, I'm not going to do them all in a row. I'm going to scatter them in with the regular Texas history stories that I talk about, but you will hear them from time to time. And if the interest level is there, I may just spin off all the golf history into another podcast. So give it some thought and give me some feedback at host@wiseabouttexas.com. Send me your golf stories. Send me your suggestions for golf-related episodes that would interest you. I want to hear about it. I'm going to hear some ideas, hopefully, some things I don't know about Texas golf that you're interested in that maybe we can make a podcast out of. So, again, host@wiseabouttexas.com. Well, that's all I got for this episode. I look forward to your feedback. Go out and play a little golf, and go out and do something for Texas today. Until next time, God bless Texas, and we'll see you down the road.